So I just saw Jimmy Pistol's The Kill Yourself Clan starring Margarine Robert as Clown Bitch, and it was amazing. Now, I usually don't like to be hyperbolic when I see a movie, but that was like one of the first movies I've seen in the theater in a long time that made me immediately say, okay, I want to watch that again like right now. And I don't usually like being a shill for superhero movies, but I can guarantee that you clicked on this for one of three reasons. One, you want to hear me talk about how James Gunn is one of the greatest directors of our generation and saved this dying franchise. Two, you want me to talk about how DC is a horrible studio and did not deserve this amazing movie. Or three, you think I'm really overhyping the Suicide Squad, and you are honestly a huge DC fanboy, and you don't even think it's that good compared to other DC flicks. And I promise you, by the end of this review, I will have indulged all three of these camps, so let's start with camp number one. So yeah, obviously this movie is really good. James Gunn does really good things, he makes really good works of art. I mean, you people know this already. James Gunn is ultimately the reason I decided to make this video. It's interesting to see how much better this movie was when the studio didn't get in the way of the director's vision and ultimately let them make what they wanted to make. You could take a look at something like Zack Snyder's Justice League that comes exactly from DC as well, and that is entirely his vision, you know, the Snyder cut of that film, yet I still do not think it holds a candle to this movie in any respect. Also, this has nothing to do with the movie, but isn't it weird that James Gunn was one of, like, the screenplay writers on, like, the Scooby-Doo live-action movies? Okay, I just wanted to drop that fact of knowledge. Moving on. So, yeah, the first Suicide Squad was a complete and total failure, ultimately due because it had no idea what kind of movie it was trying to be. It was trying to be three different movies, and it was ultimately none of them. The first thing it was trying to be was a stylized, colorful, visual adaptation of a comic book similar to Guardians of the Galaxy. The second thing it was trying to be was a gritty DC superhero movie giving an edgy take on this popular group of characters. And the third thing it was trying to be was a love story, a romance movie almost between Harley Quinn and the Joker, something that had never really been tried in live action before. And obviously it wasn't any of these. The Suicide Squad, which I'm just gonna call it Suicide Squad 2. I don't have the time to do this all day. Suicide Squad 2 is actually, like, very, very clear in what it's trying to be. Obviously, it's more or less trying to be a very stylized, colorful, huge, chaotic, fun action movie. James Gunn is really good at making something like that while also having it be like a soulful drama. The director of Suicide Squad 1 said that it was also supposed to be a soulful drama, but that is not the movie we got. This movie is immediately better than the first one because, hey, look, you can actually see in this one. I do really respect DC for basically admitting that, hey, they really fucked up the first Suicide Squad and basically just gave this one a reboot. It's not even called Suicide Squad 2, it's called The Suicide Squad. There's basically no connection to the first movie, minus the fact that there are some of the same characters in it. So yeah, like, for a billion-dollar company to say that they fucked up this bad and just restart, just make a completely new movie with a completely new director and act like the old one never happened, it's a weird move, but I definitely respect it. James Gunn isn't the only reason this movie works, however. This movie has a lot more fun moments, and it's not really just trying to be like, hey, look, there's color, look, stylized graphics for the characters' intros. It uses them so appropriately, and I think that his placements for graphics and things and weird whip pan shot and slow-mo scenes set to really good music pieces, they actually place a lot better in this movie than they are in his other works, in my opinion. But yeah, like I said, he's not the only reason this movie works. Obviously, the writing is really good, which I imagine he had his foot in. The dialogue for every single character is perfect, and every single piece of dialogue serves to tell us something about the character or add to the scene, but also giving us exposition at the same time. In this entire movie, where we have like 6 new characters, only one of them is given to explain our characters' backstories, and it only lasts like 3 minutes. And it explains the characters' backstories perfectly, which is really hard to do actually, and it does it in an interesting visual way. The dialogue, it's just so good. It flows so good. I love when there is a perfect amount of comedy, subtext, and exposition in a scene. But of course, the performances in this movie are also really good. I think in the first movie, all the actors were doing a good job, but they weren't really getting anything from the director. They were getting a really shit script as well. Like, look at the Star Wars prequels. You know, George Lucas is not a great director. I think there are competent actors in all of those movies, yet they're literally not given anything to do. A lot of people say that the actors in those movies did a horrible job, but no, they're doing exactly what George Lucas needed them to do. You guys gotta understand, the director's job is to direct. When you have good actors and it seems like they're doing a bad job in a movie, it's probably the director's fault. But yeah, no, I liked all the performances here. I'm not going to individually go over every single performance in this movie, but I gotta admit, I'm really happy that John Cena is finally getting some time to shine. I've always told people that he has really good comedic timing and can also be incredibly serious. I mean, hey, I've been shilling for WWE since I was 8 years old, so I already knew this, and I've been telling people it forever. But also a character that I even found boring in the first Suicide Squad, Colonel Rick Flag, is actually really good in this movie. He has his nice little quippy moments, but for the most part is your standard, typical, strong-headed soldier man who has a good heart at his core. In the first movie, he's kind of more of a protagonist than any of the other characters, and you have no reason to care about him. But here, it truly feels like he's taking more of a back seat. Same with Harley Quinn, which I thought was really nice. Yeah, I know earlier I technically said that Margot Robbie is the star, but I really feel like Idris Elba, honestly, is the main character of this. He ultimately becomes the leader of this new Suicide Squad, and he does a very good job at it. You can really see his development over the course of the whole movie. You can with every single character. Even the throwaway villain, the Trickster, is given a really interesting story in this one. But yeah, this is all thanks to James Gunn. The pacing in this movie is actually really weird to me at first. It does this whole section at the beginning where it's like, oh, 3 days earlier, there's this big action set piece and a lot of shit goes down, and then it cuts 3 days earlier, and they're like, oh no, please tell me we're not going to spend the next 50 minutes of the movie in this 3 days earlier section. And then it only lasts for like 5 minutes, and you're like, thank God. And it really works, actually. The first scene in the movie is introducing like a few characters, and then it's immediately a huge action set piece where everything kind of goes wrong. And it works perfectly, and then we get an explanation, and then we go back into the main plot, and we get on with the rest of the movie. It was a really good way to start the movie, and the movie actually continues to do this. Throughout the movie, there are these like little text subtitle pieces that will like lead you into the next scene, and as the movie goes on, they get more deranged and more creative, and I really like it. And oftentimes the movie will just insert it into a shot and then like cut away from the subtext down to where the rest of the characters are, and I don't know, I just have like a weird thing for that. This might be kind of a cringy hot take, but I feel like James Gunn is truly the Edgar Wright of superhero movies. If we were to give him all the superhero movies for the rest of time, I think everyone would be okay with that. Also, this movie is rated R, and honestly, I never knew that I needed a James Gunn rated R superhero movie so much until now, but yeah, this is something that I've always wanted. It's not violent or over the top for no reason. Anytime it is, it serves the story, it serves the comedy, it serves the action. It's insane to see what happens when a studio does not get in a director's way and truly lets their vision come to life. Guardians of the Galaxy was ultimately what Suicide Squad 1 was trying to emulate, and they didn't even get a percentage close, so they were basically like, hey, James Gunn, could you just make Guardians of the Galaxy with our DC characters? And he said, sure. But yeah, this movie being rated R definitely helped, and it helped that all the actors are absolutely perfect for these roles. I gotta be honest with you guys, I think this movie is better than Guardians of the Galaxy 1 or 2. I could be on a real high with this movie because I did just see it, but I'm gonna go watch it like this second after I'm finished recording this. This movie is so good that it might revive the DC cinematic universe on its own, which would be insane to see, but I would not be surprised if it did happen. Speaking of DC, I have not liked a single DC cinematic universe movie. Not a single one. Genuinely, Justice League is one of the worst movies I have ever seen. I would not watch it for any reason. I can barely make it past the 30-minute point, despite how much action it is. If I'm being honest with you, the best DC cinematic movie I've seen so far is Aquaman, because I can at least kind of have fun with it and laugh at it, and I don't always feel like throughout the movie that I'm going to die. So yeah, people who hate DC and love Marvel are absolutely right, because yes, the Marvel universe has problems, but the fact that it's able to connect all of these different characters and all these different stories together in a fun and interesting way that actually services the story is pretty commendable. The DC Cinematic Universe can't even get that right. They can't even connect the stories properly. You may have not loved Joker, but I thought it was pretty good. I'm not one of those people who hopped on the bandwagon and suddenly hates it. I think it is a pretty good movie. It's like a solid 8 out of 10. Not much better, though. But yeah, with these two movies, DC might be on a hot streak, and I am excited to see what comes out of the studio next. I can promise you that everything people are going to be wanting from DC movies is going to look a lot like the Suicide Squad. I think if they really just get talented people to come on and let their visions come to life, there are a lot of interesting stories that they can tell with these characters. This movie is the perfect blend of action, comedy, drama, heart. It just has so much. In the first 30 minutes, you already get a better development scene with our main characters than you did in the entirety of the first Suicide Squad. I'm being serious. By the fucking 30-minute mark, these characters are infinitely more developed and infinitely have a better relationship with each other, and a lot of them don't like each other very much throughout the whole movie, and it makes perfect sense. I like how chaotic and batshit insane some of the things that happen in this movie are. As we break away into this last camp, I'm going to get in the spoiler section of the video, so if you have not seen this, I'm going to talk about why this movie is infinitely better than all of the other DC movies, and why DC fanboys kind of just need to shut their mouths a little bit. And yeah, so talking about spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so DC fanboys, y'all really think that those other DC Cinematic Universe movies, like Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Wonder Woman, you think those movies are really better than this? You're telling me you would rather watch this bland-ass, boring movie with wooden performances and horrible dialogue and a CGI monster battle at the end? You would rather watch this? Like, a lot of people said that, like, they think these characters are being portrayed wrong, and I don't understand that way. Okay, so there's this dude who wants to marry Harley Quinn because he's like the new president of this foreign country, and he's a bachelorette, and he needs a wife that the people respect, and she falls in love with him immediately because he seems really cool and shows her a bunch of pretty birds and is really hot, and then immediately he starts to talk about killing kids, and she shoots him. And this actually makes a lot of sense for Harley Quinn in this universe, because as much as I didn't like it, Birds of Prey was a really good showing of Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. This movie makes complete sense given what had happened in the previous movie. John Cena's Peacemaker makes a lot of sense. He's not just like edgy Captain America. His whole thing is that he genuinely believes in liberty and he believes in protecting the interests of the US. So near the end of the movie, he is given a secret task by Amanda Waller to make sure none of the information that happened at this super secret evil military space demon base gets into the wrong hands, because it would make the US look incredibly bad. So much that he even kills Rick Flag at the end because Rick Flag tried to stop him. Yeah, and characters die in this movie. Bloodsport, our main character, like I said, who I really love, ends up killing Peacemaker to save Rat Girl. Also, I gotta say, the effects in this movie look really good, which is something that I cannot say for the other DC Cinematic Universe movies. The starfish alien, Starro the Conqueror, kinda looks fucking goofy, but he looks really good. But I think that's kind of the point for him to look goofy. All of the rats genuinely look really good, and if you don't know what I mean by all of the rats, go watch the movie. There's a girl who controls rats. It's awesome. You're telling me you would rather watch this bland-ass, boring movie with wooden performances and horrible dialogue? The first fucking 5 minutes gives you more excitement than like any other DC movie. 90% of the characters that we get introduced to die immediately because one of the dudes tells them out. Hell, even Captain Boomerang from the first Suicide Squad dies, which I genuinely didn't expect to happen. I thought he was going to have a bigger role to play in this movie. I think it was a really good subversion of expectations, because yeah, they're running into this fucking insanely guarded island and they get shot to death because all their powers fucking suck. This is a lot more realistic and is a lot more fitting of the name, The Suicide Squad. I don't really think it's that hard to understand. I know DC people love these gritty movies because they feel more raw and real, but this movie felt a lot more real to me. Also, a lot with the choreography. The fight scenes in this are just so much better, and they're just so much more enjoyable to watch. The cuts are really good. It's not too fast like the Marvel movies. You're given enough time to absorb everything that's happening around you, and you understand how one attack lands and how one counter lands, and it just feels right. I kind of like how every character kind of gets a stylized fight scene of their own, befitting of their character. Like, Harley goes on this euphoric murder spree, which is exactly in character for her. It's almost like a ballet dance for her. King Shark literally just fucking picks up a dude and eats him whole, because he is very quick and to the point. When the Rat Girl summons a fucking billion rats at the end to stop the giant starfish monster, it's almost a good moment for her because it feels like she's a part of something meaningful to meaningful people. And that means a lot to her because of her father. In this movie, with a giant rat and a rat-controlling girl and two really edgy super soldiers, and then a crazy hot chick with a giant javelin that she doesn't know the meaning of, and a fucking giant shark and fucking Polka Dot Man. Everything in this movie felt like it made more sense infinitely compared to the other DC Cinematic Universe movies, and honestly a lot of Marvel movies, if I'm being honest with you. This is what I want a superhero movie to be. I want it to make me feel like I'm watching a comic unfold before my very eyes. Comics are very stylized and very quick and very rapid, but take their time when they need to address the feelings of characters and motivations of characters, and this movie was the perfect balance of that, and if I gotta be honest with you, I love it. If I had to give some criticism, I do feel like the pacing was a little weird and some scenes could have been cut a teensy bit shorter, and honestly, this movie's funny as hell. This movie does not really have like any cringy jokes. All the performances absolutely service the comedy, and comedy is thrown in a lot, but it's because, well, these characters are kind of fucking crazy, and that's exactly how they would have acted in the situation. This movie is really fun, and is probably the first DC movie that I would say is entertaining from start to finish, and I really don't have a lot of issues with it. You can throw it on even for people who don't like superhero movies, and they will have a good time with it. It's just a great, fun, comedic action movie that has some cool characters in it. And I'm gonna give it a... you know what? Yeah, 9 out of 10 sounds good. I've been Big Citrus, and have a damn good one.